Welcome, everyone. It's good to be back. I am Heidi, and next to me is Fereshta, and this is Fierce Honest Hearts. So I'm going to start with a check-in like we always do. And I had a birthday over the weekend. I turned 59. So I'm feeling less. I was sharing with you that I was a little anxious about the number, and a friend of mine reassured me, who knows a little bit more about numerology than I do. And she said to me, actually 59 is a really strong number. So I haven't done the research, but I'm going to go in and do some numerology research around 59, because I really do, like, when I understand something, like, it just makes more sense to me. And I'm like, oh, right. And then I can kind of sink into it. Okay. So I got together with a friend of mine yesterday who fulfilled, or at least partly fulfilled, a bucket list item. Yeah, that she had had on her list for several years. And it was a solo cross-country trip. And I mean, it was just lovely to reconnect and to be with her and to hear the adventures and a lot of what she got out of it. And then she's a collector of crystals and minerals, and she created this little gift bag for me of all these little rocks and lovely gems and stuff. So yeah, and then we went through the bag, and I was like, and she was telling me stories. It was just a really sweet time and connection. So my birthday, it was mostly good, and it was also a little, bittersweet, and we'll talk about that in the podcast. But what I'm aware of is that in life, in the midst of everything, I have the ability to hold a lot. Even if I tell myself I don't want to, even if I might have some resistance around it, I'm like, that is one of my superpowers. Like, I'm really aware that there's a lot that I can hold emotionally, and even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment, I know that I'm going to be okay, right? Like, I know that I'm going to be okay. I know that I have my own back, and that's that's so important. And I might have, I might have emotions about it. I might have whatever feelings I might have, and like, when I come back to myself, I'm like, wow, I'm really going to be okay. I am okay in the moment, And so to remind myself of that, I'm like, yeah, yeah. So I think I'm going to stop there, and then and let you share a little bit, and then we can, talk about what we're going to talk about.
I don't always know what it is, but I love that we have some pieces. So I'm hearing for you, and thank you for sharing, this place in you that has felt a certain way about, I think you said odd numbers to me once. Um, and then 59 being just sort of this like untethered odd number. And I was thinking, as you said, numerology, I was like, wait, that turns into 14, right? Like I started kind of going that path, and that you have friends who can offer you a different perspective, right? That feels really good to me. And then that you're willing to kind of be curious and check it out. Like that ever open, ever growing kind of energy feels really good. And I wasn't sure when you said bucket list, it was your friend's bucket list, the cross country. And then you got to see her as part of her journey. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then just how touching it is that like she created something along the way with you in mind. That feels really, really sweet to me, really considerate and almost playful too, right? To be like, oh, I'm just gonna like, and yeah, I understand since we were in a bit of a crunchy place on your birthday, with well intentions not to be, but we were. That was bittersweet, and maybe there's more to that. So I'm curious to hear if there's more in your inner life that came with that. Um, and yeah, you can hold a lot, you know? So I wonder if that, hmm, if that knowing can show up when you're overwhelmed. That would be like a cool ninja move, right? Where you're like, oh, this is bonkers, this is bananas, I don't like this. And that self-trust I'm hearing you talk about feels really empowering. Yeah, so thank you. Man, it's been a while, right? I'm like, holy cow, okay. Well, I was away in Peru for 2 weeks and was, yeah, in a deep healing journey with a dear friend and travel companion who just so amazing to have a friendship with someone and then having never traveled before together. And then to travel 2 weeks together in a South American country. A lot of trust there, right? In saying yes to a trip together, because we had mostly had coffee dates and walking things and had not tested our friendship at this level, let's say. And then we were also in ayahuasca journey together. So a lot of firsts together. And I just want to lift that up because that was something I marveled at every day. Like, holy shift, we're doing this, right? Obviously, my inner knowing had said hell yes to the adventure and felt trusting that we could do it. But it's one thing to think that, it's another thing to see it shake out that way, the practical application of it. And especially because we had some intense healing going on, which requires even more tenderness and care than like an average day, right? So that feels really good to me to just name that it deepened our friendship. And I can share more about my experience later for those who are curious and maybe want to be more informed. Since getting back, which was only last week, I have been trying to integrate some of the lessons I learned and recognizing I don't want to fully integrate into American culture, right? There are things like Zoom that I love, and there are things like social media and other less nutritious outlets that I just don't want to be a part of. So people have asked, like, oh, are you fully integrated back? And it's like, I probably won't ever fully integrate back. That's okay. I've had two big lifts, one being you and I in our crunchy and repair of some stuff. And then today with someone I really love that's close to me, and just deepening intimacy and trust. I still get uncomfortable for all my training and all the research papers and all the studies that say, hey, repair is where you build the trust. It's worth it. It's one thing to say it is, again, a real vulnerable place for me that I have to grab all my tools, and then there's still a little part that's concerned it might not work. Not concerned, but aware that it could get messy before it gets clean. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know that I'll ever overcome that little scared animal part that's like, oh God, I hope this goes well, because I care. I really care. That's my share to start.
Thanks for all that. Yeah. So I'm really appreciating the share about the integrating and feeling that challenge. So one of the things that my friend and I talked about, because she was gone for 2 months, maybe 2 months and 2 weeks, so a while, right? And living out of she had turned her car into a camper kind of thing, and then really was living solo for 2 months, and so had a lot of internal dialogue going on and whatnot. And I said to her, and the other thing that we have in common is we both studied in Rome years ago. And I said to her, what was more challenging for you? Like the culture shock coming back when you were in Rome, or this time? She's like, hands down this time. because, you know, she's an adult now, like she's in her 40s, and it's a very different experience, right? And I was in my 30s, I was in my mid 30s when I went to Rome. And so there's a component about the adult, like when we just have more awareness and we have more appreciation or less appreciation for whatever. And just naming that, I think, is really important. And so one of the things that she, you know, just really appreciated about being out west. So she was in Utah, the Pacific Northwest, Colorado. You know, of course, she traveled across the country, so she was in the Midwest a lot anyway. And, you know, she just said, the East Coast is incredibly busy. We're in it, so I don't know that we notice it so much, but being in it and living in this culture, until you're away from it, you can't really imagine what it's like not to be in it, you know? And so, you know, she was talking about the aggressiveness of a lot of just the energy, the aggressive energy of drivers on the road, and how different when she was coming back east, finishing up her trip, how at a particular point she noticed a change in the drivers, and she was like, it was really obvious. So I guess I'm just bringing this to light because, as I encouraged you when we were talking, when, you know, privately when we were sharing, and I just said, take your sweet time, like take all the time that you need, because like, you know, I have my own vivid memories of Rome and how different life was and how simple it was. And I loved the simplicity. And so of course, I have integrated a lot of, you know, of the American culture since then, because that was back in 1996, a long time ago. God, 20, yeah, anyway. And there's some things that I still have carried with me that I don't want to lose. And I am very intentional about not losing them. So, yeah. So anyway, so I'm just going to kind of move into the other topic, which is the crunchiness that we had and how that kind of, you know, dovetails from the other piece is, as we, you know, like taking our time and really slowing down. And that's one of the things that I've learned that I need to do. And I'm very intentional about doing, is really slowing down, taking my time. And because in some circumstances, and you know what, after we finished our call on Monday, I realized, because I shared with you that I'm a slow processor. I can really be a slow processor. So some things I can, you know, have a whatever normal is, but like you know, a relatively quick turnaround. But I think it's when things are high stake. And I'm like, this is not to be rushed through. Not that I wanted to rush through it, but I was like, this is important. I need to stay with myself. I need to come back to myself, to regulate, to figure things out for myself. Because for me, the most important thing as I'm doing this work with you is continuing to hold up the mirror to myself. Because you're a mirror for me and I'm a mirror for you. And whether or not we want that to be true, it is. And I'm like, wow, God, this is so freaking hard. It's so hard. And yet I will say, when we finished our call, and we'll talk a little bit more about the call, but when we hung up the call, when we finished that, I was like, this was the best birthday gift I could have ever received in my life. So not only did you give that to me, I gave that to myself, we gave that to each other. And I'm like, and I hate to say this, but there's a part of me that wants to say it was almost worth it because of what's transpired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound odd, but like, I don't get excited when there's conflict, but I get really curious and a little excited because I'm going to learn and grow and understand more. right? So that's there in the back, even if I'm a little shaky animal in the moment. And what I'm hearing, I'm just so touched to hear that, because it was rough, right? It was a rough assessment. I mean, for me, being like, oh, I'm trained this in this stuff, and I didn't do what I wasn't conscious enough to do what I know is best, right? To tend to you, to set context and all the things. And then it was tough on my nervous system to know that I had caused you some struggle, right? Like it was just like, oh, damn it. And I'm really touched to hear that that felt like a birthday gift, right? That's a big, like 180 to come around to it, as that part feels like a fast processor, right? For you to be like, ah, this was a gift I gave myself and a gift for my birthday.
Mhm,
I do think it was worth it, given how much more deeply I understand our friendship.
mhm.
And I said this to you on the call, like, oh, I knew intellectually that I considered you a dear and best friend, but like in this sort of calamity, I realized how important you are to me. And that I wouldn't trade, getting that memo.
Right.
It came from a little fear of loss, I think, but it also came from like a true, genuine heart that was like, this is high stakes now. I don't know when the line got crossed, but I'm confirming this feels high stakes now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you on that. And I'm going to confess that I do actually really like conflict. I do. I would almost say that I love it. And it is because I know the potential of what could come.
Hmm.
And I'm simply someone who wants to know and wants and is curious about the structure of another person and what makes them who they are, and what their, you know, understanding them better, and their emotions better, like that. I want that in a relationship, right? And so um I don't want you to be shy about saying that you like conflict. Just say I if you
Well,
like.
I, I feel open to it because similar to you, there can be real gifts. Now, the rub is, sometimes I've had conflict with people who did not share our emotional maturity and our willingness to come to the table and a collaborative, like, hey, how do we do this better kind of approach, where then, we exit each other's lives and there's grief, right?
Yeah.
So I've had that too. And I think that piece can make me anxious,
Mhm.
the loss piece. And yet, those are also people you can't do life with if they're not going to take ownership and look at themselves and be willing to grow and learn with you, with
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
It's a no deal anyway. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we like conflict.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I see it as an opportunity
Mhm.
to connect deeper. And like you said, it's not everyone's medicine. It's not meant for
Mhm.
everyone, because not everyone can do this. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit by saying that for our audience who's listening and maybe curious, how did they get to where they are to work through this in such a, in whatever way they did this. So I'm talking about, even though I'm saying they, I'm talking about us, but I'm talking to our audience. And what I want to say is that without the foundation that we have created, and it has been years.
Mhm.
I mean, we've been working on this and I want to say very intentionally and very consciously working on this.
Mhm.
And
Preparing for this, right?
preparing for it, and really stepping up with all the tools as
Mhm.
best we can, and having a lot of space for each other, space for ourselves, a lot of grace, I use that word over and over, but really a lot of grace. And I'm speaking, really preaching to the choir here, saying that I can, like I shared with you, I can really be my own worst enemy. And most of us are in that situation. Even though we don't want to be, it's really true. We really can beat up ourselves. So without that foundation, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did on Monday. We would not have been able to repair it in the way that we did. It might have looked different, but I don't know that it would have come out as clean. And so what I want to say to, again, to those who are listening, that if this is what you want in your life, if you want to be able to have hard conversations that can feel so incredibly uneasy and scary and all of those things, contact us. We're happy to work. I mean, more than happy to work with you. And yeah, certainly contact, Fereshta. So anyway, yeah. And like you said, you didn't realize until we were in it, the high stakes of it, and how much, you love us, you love me, you love our relationship. And I'm like, yeah, I also came to that conclusion kind of, I think, in the process of, and then more so when you named it, and I was like, this is like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. Truly, like truly. This is what I've wanted. And then I asked myself, okay, so be really clear about what you want, right? Because it takes work. I mean, I can't.
Well, you applied yourself too, right? Like, I'm feeling touched that this is something you're getting to receive in your life. And I watched you apply the tools, right? Because it does take that collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, when you said, like, if you want to have these hard conversations and that feel vulnerable and whatever, like, reach out to us. It's because of this. On the other side of that sweaty conversation, it's more intimacy, more trust, and maybe even more love.
Yeah.
Right? I call it the deepening, but it's this place that we don't get to if everything's always fine.
Right.
Whatever that is, I don't want that.
Oh, either.
Right? I mean, I also am not trying to like create conflict, but
right, of course, yeah.
But when it arrives, there is a real opportunity.
Yeah.
For intimacy.
Yeah.
And then care instructions, right? We shared a lot in that convo. I mean, first off, like, I think there were cues in the other two messier convos of like, that doesn't work for Heidi. Let me note that, right? So there's that way of getting data. And then the conversation and repair we had on Monday being like, okay, so my anxiety makes me want to go faster, but Heidi needs slower. So how am I going to do that in a conflict? Right? Like, how am I going to hold and soothe myself so I don't get faster and more anxious, knowing that's not working for you? So if it's not working for you, it's not working for us. Right? And okay, next time, if there's a next time, I mean, hopefully there's decades ahead, so there will be a next time. Remember to slow down for her. Right? Like, that is priceless care instructions over here.
Yeah.
And for you not to feel like, because you said like, I'm a slow processor, and I was like, compared to what, right? Like, you process how you process. So just the myth of like, oh, I'm a slow processor. No, I process deeper and being more deliberate, I think, is something I heard you say. It's high stakes enough, a pause would be beneficial. Yeah. It all feels like wisdom, right? Not necessarily like something you're limping along with, in my opinion.
Right. And thank you for that, and recognizing it, naming it. And I don't feel like I'm limping along. Like, when I say I'm a slow processor, maybe it's, maybe it might be a good idea to share a little bit more context about that. So when it comes to, because I almost, like, before our call on Monday, I had a little tablet and a pen. And I was almost going to say to you, if I'm looking down, I'm taking notes, because there are times when, and it's when I'm really emotionally charged,
Mhm.
that I can easily let something slip through and not pay, like, not get it, like, not
Yeah.
really take it in.
That
And I
makes
did
sense.
not,
Totally.
what?
I said, that makes sense. Totally. Like, how receptive are you while you're also geared up, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And so, and it was important to me to not miss anything. Like, I knew that this conversation, probably this week, maybe this month, is probably the most important conversation I'm going to have. It's really, truly. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to miss anything. And then, we started conversing, and it became easier, because
Mhm.
the more you you were sharing your impact, and I could feel my nerves just kind of, dropping, my shoulders
Mhm.
for certain dropping, and my heart expanding. And I was like, oh wow, this is where it's at. This is
Mm.
the meat and potatoes. This is the essence of what a healthy and conscious friendship is. And I don't need to make it any harder on myself or you
Mhm.
than I
It
am.
already
Than
is.
than it already is. Yes, yes. Because yeah, I mean, anyway, yes, because yes, because I'm already making it hard. I don't need to make it harder. And so I realized, as you were sharing, I'm like, yeah, this isn't that terrible, Heidi.
Mm.
This is much easier
Mhm.
than I was certainly anticipating. And it was because I was able to receive you and hear you and see you and witness you as you are, as my friend,
Mhm.
as the person that I'm closest to, for sure, and that I really, really trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for me. I don't know if you're aware of that, but thank you for making it as easy as I felt it to be easy.
Mm.
Even through all the stuff, it was, yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And I'm still breathing.
Yeah. We made it.
Seriously, when we were finished with that call, I felt like I needed to carry around a sign that says, we did it.
Yeah.
That's how big it felt to me, and how
It is
important it
big.
felt.
It's
Yeah.
like a culmination of everything, we've been teaching and sharing, right? At the end of the day. And the headline to me is like, how do we tend to each other's nervous systems and tend to each other's feelings while holding ourselves, while holding a nervous system that's probably fighting against all that, right? So when I'm coaching couples or individuals and they have the technique, right? They have the LUFU or they have the things. It's like, cool, you have the knowledge, but the embodiment's going to take work, right? Like, you don't read the LUFU one pager and
You're fixed.
right.
No.
There's knowledge, there's integration, there's embodiment,
Mhm.
and um, it feels really good. And sometimes it's hit or miss. Listen, sometimes I try stuff and it's like, wow, I just totally missed the mark, right?
Mhm.
But there is the opportunity to come back again
Mhm.
and again and again. And that's comforting to me,
Mhm.
you know. But I'll speak for myself and the people I coach. I am fighting my nervous system, or at least trying to befriend it. That
Mhm.
might be a better term. I'm trying to soothe my nervous system, tend to you over there, deal with my own history that might be coming up,
Mm.
right? Core wounds, traumas that are flared up, you know, and then the stories that come from that. And hold, like, hey, this person matters, and I like, it's important that we do this. it's actually it's a huge undertaking. So I get wanting to run around with a flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, little parade, you know, because it's what's possible, but it takes an enormous amount of resourcing. Yeah. Well, thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a lot of care online, getting to see you in a crunchy time. And I appreciate the pauses that we did take because it gave me time to look at my side.
Mhm.
Go, oh, okay. Yeah. That I can own. Like what's on my side of the street to own, you know? Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. What a wild ride, right? And you said something I just want to name around. Like we've been preparing for this for years because the reality is when you first become friends, it's low stakes. Maybe it's medium stakes down the road, and the way that we've cultivated time together every week, twice a week, consistently over years, right?
Mhm.
Like, of course, things are going to come up once it's high stakes. Of course, feelings are going to be hurt or expectations are going to be birthed. We don't do that with low stakes people. You know, with low stakes people, you're like, F you. You can keep it,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it all makes sense to me from that lens. And I always want to get to zero with my high stakes relationships.
Mhm.
You know, people in the mezzanine, not so much. Like, you know, you can't clean it up with the register girl and the mailman, and like maybe you can, but I really do prioritize like inner circle. We're
Yeah.
clean and connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The orchestra pit is kind of important. It really is.
Yeah. Wanting to stay in connection and real harmony. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. So where would you like to go from here? I'm curious. I know there's so many things we've been touching upon.
Yeah. There are so many things we can touch upon. Um, so this just came to me. So it'd be nice if we were live interacting with people, but maybe that'll happen some other time. But I'd be curious to know
Mhm.
um, from you, and then, if other people want to chime in the questions, if there's something that they are in the questions,
Oh,
if there's something that they're struggling with going into next week, which is a very American, very high holiday situation with family, friends, loved ones, whatever it is. And um, yeah, and maybe you can, and maybe they might not be things for you, but maybe things you can name that you know of that people are struggling with,
yeah.
and maybe we can offer some support
I
or
love
suggestions
that.
for them to, because this is a really, it can be a very challenging time of year.
Yeah, tenuous even.
For
Right.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was checking our comments, and that's where the audio came from of being like,
Okay.
I wonder if anyone is asking anything, but there was only one like love you comment, so that was very sweet. Um, yeah, well, let's name the elephant in the room, which is if you haven't really had deep connection with your family, this is already an activation
Yeah.
going into the holidays, like the energy of having to be there,
Mhm.
or I should be there, or gosh, I don't really get along with them, or there's, let's say you're not at zero with someone
Right.
in your family, or you've got that really unapologetic racist uncle, right? Or I mean, whatever. I'm making
Yeah.
some random examples here, but when those relationships are tenuous and we haven't spoken our truth, we haven't felt seen and heard, it's a lot to come to the table and pretend to celebrate, I
Right.
think. So one element of this is, don't abandon yourself,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you don't want to go to that thing. That's okay. Maybe you do, but you're just like, hey, I'm only here for an hour.
Yeah.
That's okay,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you're like, I'm just going to stay here as long as it feels good. And I'm going to, graciously bow out when it doesn't. Um, I don't know if that's landing for you, but just this place of having your own back in a situation that's not maybe 100% like your jam.
Right. Right. This is all landing for me for sure. And the one specific thing that you mentioned that really hit home for me is the um first of all, ahead of time, knowing what your boundaries are.
Hmm.
So instead of allowing yourself to stay for an unlimited amount of time,
Let's say 4 hours, which might not be healthy.
or 6 hours,
6 hours. Yeah.
I've done that.
Hmm.
Wasn't good. But to say to yourself, I'm going to give it an hour.
Hmm.
Check in, see how you're feeling. And if you feel like, okay, I'll give it another 30, I'm feeling good. I think I can stay for another 30 or another hour.
Hmm.
Then do that and check back in with yourself. And that is certainly one way that you can have your back and um and be standing for yourself in what is best for you.
Hmm.
Um and then the other thing that I want to say is if there is someone like Fereshta mentioned, a racist uncle, like that just I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, right.
Right.
Um,
The
but if
cringy
there
person of
a
the
crunchy
family.
someone who can be inappropriate or is inappropriate, right? I know this is really risky, but I would encourage you to maybe speak up a little bit and
Mhm,
share your truth. And
mhm.
I want to give an example. So this was, oh my God, at least, I don't know, at least 10 years ago. And it was right after it was a Thanksgiving. It was either Thanksgiving or Christmas. So my parents and I would spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with this family, right? The meal. And this was right after the Tiger Woods thing with his wife and all that. Okay. Got exposed. And the head of the table said, I have a Tiger Woods joke. And I knew where this was going. And so I put up my hand. I said, I'm going to ask that you not, because for me, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and it does not feel appropriate.
Mhm.
And I was a little like, I was like, oh my God, what are you doing, Heidi? But then I thought, I don't want to hear this because that's not funny to me.
Mhm.
That's just, it feels gossipy. And I'm like, I don't want to gossip about that,
A
you know,
tragedy, right, in someone's life.
it is a tragedy. It's horrible,
Mhm.
and why are we laughing at the expense of another person? And then who are you to throw a stone? Like, I'm not throwing any, I'm not going to do that anyway. So it got a little uncomfortably quiet for a little bit, right? And then people just started conversing again, and I thought, and to this day, I'm so glad that I did that I stood up for myself
Yeah.
and probably stood up for other, like maybe other people didn't really feel comfortable saying anything and didn't necessarily want to
Good.
hear it.
Right, exactly, you might have been advocating for more than yourself
Right.
in that moment. So,
Yes.
yeah, I absolutely love that if it feels safe, appropriate, and you're okay with, the awkward few minutes of silence, it's okay,
Yeah.
right? Or someone's defensiveness, you don't have to buy into it. As you were saying that, something came up for me, which is finding your allies at a party.
Mm,
Like, you don't have to hang with the cringy person, right? You could hang with the cool teenager who's into art,
Yeah,
right? So know ahead of time who your allies are, where you're going. It doesn't have to be premeditated, like you don't have to be extra about it, but just like have an idea. This again, having your back. Who are the people I enjoy talking to? Maybe I sit next to them
mhm,
at the table. Maybe in the kitchen while we're preparing stuff, I align with them.
mhm.
Right? It's like a buddy system for for the
Yeah,
holidays.
yeah.
And maybe, especially if you have unspoken resentments for somebody, maybe don't let alcohol be your ally.
Right.
And I don't say that with any like judgment,
Oh,
right?
no, no.
It's just that alcohol is an inflammatory in terms of in the body and in the temperament.
Mhm.
So it might not give you as much agency as you need to stay conscious, keep it together. For me, right? Like I try not to involve alcohol in a place where I know I could be volatile or quickly triggered.
Mhm.
And so some people see that as a huge ally at Thanksgiving and Christmas and around
Sure.
family and
Mhm.
right, or gluten, like just eating all the cookies.
Yeah,
Maybe find a better resource, right? So that you hopefully can enjoy some aspect of it,
mhm.
right? Yeah. How's that landing for you? Because it's like, I don't want to be like, don't drink, but it's like, be mindful if that ends up making you more uh, curmudgeon-y, I guess.
Right, right. Well, also, if we are drinking, we're under the influence.
Hmm.
And if we're under the influence, our minds are not thinking clearly. We are not nearly as conscious as we are. And depending upon the amount that we drink,
Hmm.
we might not be conscious at all.
Right.
And so if, like Fidesta said, if you are holding a grudge or holding a resentment that you have not spoken a word to about to anyone, and the resentment that you have towards and that person's there, and you are under the like seriously under the influence, God help you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just be careful what comes out of your mouth,
Right.
because it's not like we can take those words back. We can't eat those words.
Mhm.
Once they're out, they're out.
Mhm.
And no matter what your intentions are of what you're speaking, the people in the room or the person that is said to is going to receive it in through their own lens in the way that they receive it. So um yeah, I'm 100% backing you on that. Just
Well, just think about the equation, right? If the cringy person is endlessly drinking and then you are endlessly drinking, sounds like a bad equation,
yeah,
right? And it's not even the cringy person. It could be the person that overmanages and is anxious. It could
right,
be the person who thinks they're responsible for all the stuff in the kitchen and is like now kind of creating tension.
right,
It might not be so obvious,
right.
right? But if your mom's always anxious and over managing and micromanaging and like this little anxious thing, and that's something you grew up with and it's triggering for you, now you add alcohol to the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And it just timing and tact won't be there.
No, they're going to be void, non-existent.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for some people who have not, in our teenage years, we're biologically supposed to differentiate and individuate and start to cut the cord because we're going to leave the nest, right? Some people haven't done that. So they're still in the value systems, the culture, the religion, the uh, conforming
Mm,
energy. Maybe take it as an opportunity to differentiate, like even a little.
mhm.
If you don't eat dairy at home and your family's making like some kind of yogurt dish, And everyone's like, come on, have some, right? People do these weird kind of pressure things, Italian families, Afghan families, at least as far as I know.
Mhm.
Maybe you differentiate a little, maybe you have a little win there. Yeah, I don't do dairy, thanks though,
Mhm.
right? Versus eating it to conform.
Right.
Small example, but I think it happens,
Right.
especially at holidays,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
poor vegan who's like dealing with eating stuffing,
Right.
right? Or maybe, oh, this is one too. If you have dietary restrictions, bring something you can eat.
Mhm.
Or if your host is caring enough, let them know, right? Like, don't set yourself up for like a shitty experience. This is all personal responsibility, in my opinion.
Right. I would say it is certainly self-responsibility, but it's also self-care.
Yes. And
Like
self
think of
regard.
self-regard, self-care, and think about it as, you know, whoever the host is having 15 to 20 guests.
Hmm.
And and you have dietary changes, dietary restrictions, whatever
Hmm.
it is, and you are eating differently, and you know that there's a chance that you're the only one eating differently. Certainly contact the host ahead of time and
Yeah.
just say, hey, this is what some changes in my life.
Hmm.
This agrees with my system better. So I'm gonna, bring, if it's okay, I'm gonna bring my own food.
And bring something you love and enjoy. And so it, like,
Right,
you don't have to drop into some victim place.
right. And then maybe even offer, I have this side dish that I think everyone would enjoy. I would love to offer this and bring this.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that you can become a part of not only the group, but the menu and what they're sharing and the communing and everything. Yeah,
And also shedding a narrative of like, nobody cares about me. And like the woe is me that can happen
yeah,
at the Thanksgiving table. It's like,
yeah.
you can prevent some of this, right?
Mhm.
And some of it might be tolerating. I don't love that word. I don't necessarily want to tolerate people,
Yeah,
frankly, but I guess choosing your battles
yeah.
too. Does that make sense? Because I actually don't want people to have a low standard and tolerate crap.
I don't either. No, not for, I would say especially for a holiday where, we create memories and we build memories, and we want our memories to be really sweet when it comes to family and loved ones. They aren't always are, but if we
Mhm.
can do our part to create memories for ourselves that where we feel good,
Yeah,
I'm going to say I'm all for it. Go for it. Do what you need to do.
yeah. And I'll add this too, because this was one for me, because I can be so sentimental about holidays.
Uh-huh.
It's also only one day,
Right.
right? Like to put all our angst and our expectations and our victim stuff and our history with our family and um, all the unmet needs, like to create this sort of, it feels like this to me, this like really volatile energy, to also pair that with some sanity
Right. Right.
that it's Thursday.
Right.
Like,
One day.
and it can't all be solved
Yeah.
on Thursday,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, yeah, that for me has been a bit of work to not make that any holiday
Mhm.
so important that I ruffle my own feathers about it. And it's ongoing work. It's not complete.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I love hearing that. Yeah.
Thank you for like just bringing that, because hell yeah, we need to support people in preparing for next week, and I hope we did.
Yeah. Me
Yeah.
too.
Mm. So, friend, you asked for,
The and cards.
we have our long-term couples edition, which feels appropriate.
It
All
kind of
right,
does.
so we've got, for whatever reason, 199 cards because that's what they decided. I'm gonna give it a quick shuffle, not looking, and then For you, I'm going to say whichever, my middle finger, wherever
Okay.
you feel called to stop.
Right there.
This one?
Yep, that one.
Oh, this is the how to play card. So I'm going to put that
Oh,
back. But we'll keep going from there. How's that?
okay.
That one. Okay. Ooh, okay.
No.
A crunchy ass question, man. Okay, we'll see what happens. How have I not changed in ways you wish I had? That feels kind of defeating, but who knows? Let's see. How have I not changed in ways you wish I had?
All right. So I'm just going to go for it and say, yeah. And as I say this, I'm holding the mirror to myself, right? And it has to do with this last, crunchiness, which is, and it's interesting. I'm so glad this actually came up because I wanted to say something about this on the podcast, which is you so beautifully, when I said to you, it seems like you're taking this personally. And you're like, yeah, I am, right? You were like, yeah. And I'm like, that to me, like I was so yes, I would love for that to change. I would love for that to change in myself too. And when you were like, yeah, I am, I'm like, fuck, she's got it. Like she knows. She's
I know.
Here, right? Like, and it's not as if I didn't think you were aware. I was just like, I wonder if she knows that when, and again, preaching the choir, when taking things personally and how that affects, like the effects that has, right? And anyway, so that's, yeah.
Yeah. You certainly reminded me that that's at play. Right. So I'm grateful to you too, because as you asked that, I was like, yep, I'm not going to deny that that's not a part of this because it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a tough one for me. How have you not changed in ways I wish you had? I don't have a big wishing bone for people. That's my work is acceptance. And if I really challenge myself, because I'm like, okay, like, if there's a place, and I think this came up in our convo, is a place where you can relax and not manage so hard. For you, right? Like, yes, for us, but as your friend, for you. And I actually saw that start to happen.
Yeah.
Conversation. So it's not like it's not happening.
Right.
But if you had asked me like 2 weeks ago, I'd have been like, yeah, if Heidi could, just feel a little more trusting of me, or maybe of the process or of life. Like, I don't know the answer there, but I got to see a little exhale in you that alluded to that.
Yeah.
And your ownership, just, oh my God, your self-awareness blew my mind. When you could name that you see it, and you could name where it came from, and you could name the impact of it, like, I did not expect that level of.
You froze.
Yeah, you froze for me too. We're good.
Okay.
I didn't expect that level of depth, though I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a tricky question, because I'm like, there's a part of my caretaker comes online a little and not wanting to hurt.
Sure, of course.
And then be like, but okay, if we're wanting to be real here.
Right.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you for this incredible journey together that just gets better and better.
Yeah.
Thank you for modeling with me what is possible.
Mm,
Because to our audience, that's all we've wanted to do from the beginning is
serve in this way. Yeah.
give you ideas, give you modeling, and give you hopefully a little encouragement to try it
Yeah,
yourself.
certainly encouragement. Yeah.
Mm.
So thank you to everyone who was here with us today. If you watch later, we appreciate that as well. Feel free to put, a thought or a question in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you all next time.
All right. Take
Bye,
care,
everyone.
everyone.